Okay, so this shiur is going to be a slightly different style than what we usually do. Usually, as you know, the shiurim, this is going different two ways. One is usually in my shiurim, we work through the area together. Also, usually I go through all the sources. This year I envision, so Yehoshua, this is dedicated to Yehoshua and Brooke because Yehoshua and I prepared this for the last weeks. So I want to summarize to you our findings on Sheva Berachos. The title of this year is My Current Understanding of Sheva Berachos as of December 2022. And the idea behind the shiur is I want to do it all in one shot and just get in one package deal. Like if you want kavana during the Sheva Berachos at a wedding, here are ideas that you can think of. Okay. So it's a kind of a mix of halacha and the meaning of the brachos. So obviously we can have discussion and analysis, but we're not going to learn through the primary sources. And I'm not even going to quote the primary sources. I felt guilty about doing that at first, but then I realized that I realized that one of the pirushim I'm using is the Otzar Tefilos, and what he does is he's a digest style commentary. So he takes a bunch of Rishonim, and he usually doesn't quote who he's saying it from. So I'm basically just copying him. Okay, and most of the ideas that we learned are from the Aruch Shulchan, the Abu Dirim, and the Eitz Yosef, with some other stuff thrown in here. Okay, but again, interrupt you if you have any questions. The idea is like practical kavana for these brachos. Okay. All right, so first one is actually not one of the Sheva Berachos, but I thought we should at least touch on it, is the Birkas Erusin. Okay, and this is said at Erusin. Okay, the hard part also here is I'm presupposing a lot of knowledge about what the stages, how marriage works or whatever. So just ask if you have any questions, but we're not going to delve into the halakha. So there's two stages. There's Erusin and Nisuin. Okay, Erusin, what's the difference between Erusin and Nisuin?
One is the betrothal and the other is the actual chuppah.
Okay, so what's the halakhic difference?
One's isha, one's not.
Right. So Erusin makes the woman ashar to all men, okay, including the guy who did Erusin to her, and then Kiddushin, and then Nisuin is matir her to him. Okay, so and that's the order, and the way my mnemonic device is you talk about the ensuing Nisuin. Right, like the nisuin that comes after. That's how you remember which one's first. And kiddushin and erusin are synonymous. Okay, so the bracha is, and I'm going to read this and translate it. You tell me what's weird about the bracha. So Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, you Hashem are the source of blessing. Asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvosav, who sanctified us with His commandments. V'tzivanu al ha'arayos, and commanded us regarding the arayos. Okay, now I've asked this question to just a second. I've asked this question to a lot of people. No one has gotten the right answer to this question. Okay, the question is, what is the definition of arayos?
Women who are always also.
Isn't that
That's close, but it's not actually it.
Isn't that like abominations?
No, that's toeva.
Toeva?
Yeah, all the arayos are described as toeva, but that's not what the identity of the arayos is, or the definition. Yeah.
I don't think this is right, but it's the staff. Is it the sexual sins that you get carded?
Okay. That is the closest that we've gotten to it, and it might even be totally accurate. I'm just going to quote to you. I put this here in case I accidentally scrolled and revealed the answer. So, so the Rambam says arayos are sexual prohibitions that are liable for kares, which are listed in Parshas Acharemos. The only thing I got to check is, are there other ones that are not in Acharemos, and do we call those arayos? And the reason why this is the case in your answer doesn't suffice is because there are prohibitions. First of all, there are sexual prohibitions that are not chayav kares. Okay, there are other ones that are stemming from an aseh. So there are other ones that are only asur d'Rabbanan. So I think people descriptively use arayos for all sexual prohibitions, and it's possible that the term evolved to be used that way. But in technical halakhic terms, according to the Rambam, it's the ones that are chayav kares. And I'm bringing this up now because it's important for understanding the bracha. Okay, I think. All right. So he prohibited to us the arayos. V'hitir lanu es hanesuo. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I skipped the line. V'asur lanu es ha'arusos. He prohibited betrothed women to us. V'hitir lanu es hanesuos, and he permitted to us married women that you marry, not just all married women. Okay, listen to Mishlei this year for that. Al yidei chuppah v'kiddushin, through chuppah and kiddushin. Baruch atah Hashem, you Hashem are the source of blessing. Mekadesh amo Yisrael al yidei chuppah v'kiddushin, who sanctifies Israel as people through chuppah and kiddushin. So what strikes you as weird about this bracha? Because I'm weirded out every time I hear this bracha. Yeah.
Well, it's a bracha on a lotas.
Yes, that's the weirdest thing, right? So
Yeah.
bracha on a lotas, okay. And I think there are other features that make it even weirder, that amplify the weirdness of that. That's the main weirdness. But what else is weird? Yeah, Sean.
You don't really point out when something's mutter to you that that's a great thing.
Yeah, right. It is right. Yeah, heterim. We all love heterim, but it is a weird thing to make it into a bracha,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, definitely. By the way, fun fact: I forgot who said this, which is also why I'm kind of relieved I'm not quoting the sources. Someone says that the reason why we add in the words idea chuppah v'kiddushin is to make it clear to people that the bracha is not matir the woman to you. Because if you imagine if it says v'hitir lana es nesuos, if you made a bracha, people feel like brachos, effectuate things, right? Like, for example, I think it is weird. I think when he says Harayat Makadeshas Li, there are people who are inclined to like say Amen, like as if it's some sort of bracha, or there are other things where like let's say like what are some, I feel like there are other things we do that are verbalizations that are not brachos, and then like I don't know, like
Brachos do act as a matzah also.
yes, they do act as, that's probably why people think that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. So that's why it was added in Al Yidei Chuppah V'Kiddushin, which I don't think all the new scholars have. Yeah.
I feel like the line of ashar lana ashar arusos is just kind of strange.
Okay,
Like, I
why?
know it's out of place, but like it's just seems like so like secondary to like the other arayos. Like
Right.
it's also just like a very specific.
It is very specific. Now, just keep in mind one thing also, this bracha is made when you do erusin. Now, we are accustomed to making this at the chuppah, but it used to be that they would do erusin, like the way that we do like engagements, right? Like you would do erusin, and then like a long time later, there would be the chuppah. Yeah, Yaakov?
Why is he even talking about Arias?
Yes, that's the question. All right, well, what's the...
She's New York. So
Okay, right. So that's okay. Good. You picked up on the clue here. Maybe is that the arayos are the sexual prohibitions that are liable for kares. The woman who you're marrying is not shaykh to arayos, because if she were, you can't marry her, right? So we're talking arayos like incest, and like all the all the 30 whatever 6 arayos, or actually they're not 36 arayos, but in other words, the woman you're marrying is not even in the parsha of arayos. Okay, so that's also weird. Yeah. So basic understanding of this, just again, goal is to get the basic understanding here, is the other thing also is that you start saying the bracha and you think you're going to be saying a birkas mitzvah, right? And then you end up saying the los aseh. That's the other thing that amplifies the weirdness. So I can't remember where we saw this, but that our understanding we arrived at is this is not a birkas mitzvah. Okay, it is a birkas shevach about a class of mitzvos. And the class of mitzvos is Kedusha. Okay, Kedusha Yisrael. Right now, let's just go over a basic idea of what is Kedusha.
It's the
Designation.
So,
separation.
okay, so the literal translation of Kedusha is separation, right? But when we talk about Kedusha in the context of ashar kiddushan b'mitzvosav, or we talk about the mitzvos of Kedusha, then it's separation that has a specific connotation.
It's a separation with a designation, it's a specific purpose.
Okay, that is true. Say again? It is expressed through standards. That's true.
Sanctification is the common.
So that's the common one. The only reason I don't like the word sanctification is it has vibes, like it has, I didn't look this up, but someone told me that like if you look up in like the Oxford English Dictionary or something, not the Oxford English Dictionary, you look up the dictionaries that try to trace the roots way back, it'll say like, holy, kadosh means holy, and then holy comes from like, it ends up with a self-referential thing where people end up with this feeling that there's like holiness and they never actually define it, So, and sanctity comes from sacred, but similar problems. So it's not wrong. It's just, it doesn't like deliver the idea the way I would like. Yeah, Tamar?
I feel like there's like a specifically non-physical connotation sometimes.
I
don't know if anyone said that
Where
yet.
does the non-physical connotation come from?
We call God.
God. Yeah, we call God Kadosh. Not only that, but the parsha of Kedoshim Tihu, which arguably,
Is it
So arguably the parsha that's most about Kedusha is Parshas Kedoshim, which is in Vayikra 19. And it starts off at Ber El Bnei Yisrael, V'amart halim Kedoshim Tihiyu, Ki Kadosh Ani Hashem Lokechem. You should be Kadosh because I, Hashem, your God, am Kadosh. And I think it ends off that V'is Kadishim V'sim Kedoshim, Ki Kadosh Ani Hashem Lokechem. I forgot where that. Actually, there's several like that. V'isem Li Kedoshim, Ki Kadosh Ani Hashem. Yeah. So it is compared to Hashem, and that's what tomorrow I think is getting at with a non-physical thing. Yeah, Isaiah.
I think in this area that Kedusha is like restriction.
Okay.
Like we're restricted from things.
Yeah. So the way Rashi famously explains Kedoshim to you is in Vayikra 18 is the end of Parshas Acharemos, and it goes through all the prohibited arayos, and then you get Kedoshim, and Rashi says, Kedoshim to you, Hevu Purushim min harayos min havera, Shekol makom she'ata motze geder erva ata motze kedusha. This means separate yourselves from arayos and from averos, because anytime you find a fence or standard of erva, that's where you'll find kedusha. Okay, one more clue though. These are all true ideas, but one more clue just before I state a succinct interpretation. What does the Rambam have in Sefer Kedusha?
And
Exactly, right. So in Sefer Kedusha, which is again good place to look if you want the theme of Kedusha, is two categories of mitzvos: Isurei Bia, which is sexual prohibitions, and Malchalas Asuros, which is eating prohibitions. And then shechita is part of eating prohibitions. So my working definition of kedusha, okay, is it's yeah.
I think specifically.
Sanctified with transcendence of physicality. Okay, because transcend means separate but above. You transcend something. So exactly. So the whole thing is that the two basic pleasure drives in a person. Listen to Rebbe's Kedoshim to you or Nida and Kashrus. Anyone know what number that is?
I know it's on the fundamentals.
Yeah, I feel like it's D5 or something like that. I don't know.
I was going to say 5 also.
I don't know if that's true. Yeah.
55, but okay.
It's definitely in the single digits, I think. Yeah, whatever. So listen to that. That's really got a good cheer on it. But the two primary drives in man are the sexual and the appetitive. Okay, there are other drives and other pleasures, but those are the two main ones. Yeah.
It's not even it's lav dafka to men, right? It's dafka to being a physical.
Well, so here's my conception of it, which is that it's so God is kadosh because he's not physical at all and not affected by physicality at all. Obviously, we can't be that kind of kadosh because we're not malachim, right? We are physical. So for us, kedusha means to transcend the physical, or if you want to put it in a bumper sticker mode, mind over matter, right? That your mind should be governing your matter and not the other way around. And the primary way we do that is through regulating our desires in the sexual and the appetitive, but also the way we do it is through all mitzvos. That's why we say ashar kiddushan b'mitzvosav. Mitzvos make us kadosh in general, which is some mitzvos work on separating you from physical taivas. Other mitzvos work on strengthening your mind. Other mitzvos attack both areas. Yeah.
Is this your definition for kedusha overall?
Overall, yeah. For kedusha, for human kedusha. Whenever we talk about human beings being kadosh,
transcendent physicality.
Right. Yeah. So let me back up. Kedusha in general is transcending. Is that connected to transcending physicality? So for God, it's not being physical at all. For human beings, becoming kadosh is transcending our physicality in terms of rising above the influence.
So the question for you, when you designate an animal for carbon,
right?
How are you defining
right?
Animal?
So it is. So that's a good question. In my definition, it's because it's designated for an institution of kedusha, which is the mikdash, which is a institution that serves that purpose. Or let's say moadim are mikra'e kodesh. There are times of year that we devote ourselves to kedusha development.
So would you also use transcending physicality with an animal?
No, I would say that its usage is for the purpose of us transcending physicality. Yeah.
Not to get lost in what I hesitate to call weeds, but I feel
lush forests. Yeah.
But I feel like I feel like God's kedusha has to be more than just not being physical, because he's kadosh even from non-physical beings that are
right. So
in that sense, it's just more like transcendence in general.
That's true. Right. Yeah, I guess that's why I kind of hesitated about when Ariel asked me if it's my idea in general. Definitely for human beings.
Okay.
It's good. Yeah.
To me, umbrella term transcendence from things.
Yeah. Right.
In that sense, and then you can divide that into
correct,
whether it's physical, whether
it's
all things.
Right.
Why aren't you a huge fan of separation?
Because separation, you could just separate black and white, and it doesn't convey what this is for. How does this? Our idea of kedusha is, and we have another term for separation that's not kadosh, which is mavdil, right? Lahavdil, right? Is havdalah, which is just separation between two things, right? But this is separation and rising above. Yeah, between kodesh and chol. You have to say that in order to convey the idea, right? Okay, so basic understanding of this bracha is it's a bracha on the institution of Kedushas Yisrael regarding the sexual. And so you do the pyramid of Kedusha. The foundation of Kedushas Yisrael is separation from the Arayos. Okay, well, actually, let me just express this through an idea from that shiur. Is Rebbe mentions on the shiur that in Bios Asuros and Machalos Asuros, then there are two ways that the Torah regulates us. Okay, let's take with the foods first, right? With certain foods are asur to us all the time. We can never have them. Other foods are asur to us under certain conditions or at certain times. So, for example, pork, shellfish, etc., you can never have. Meat you can have of domesticated kosher animals, but only if it undergoes shchita, right? Or let's say like you can have milk and you can have meat, but not together, or you can have chametz but not on Pesach, right? So the reason for that is because when it comes to addictions and attachments to pleasures, certain people have an easier time with certain pleasures giving it up cold turkey, but they would never be able to regulate themselves in moderation. Like either have to not be involved in it at all. And for other people, it's the opposite, or other pleasures, the opposite is that as long as I can partake of it, like some people need cheat days on their diets, right? Like if I certain times I'm good, but if you say don't have it forever, then I can't tolerate that. But in each of the Machalos Asuros, you have both categories. Same thing in Bios Asuros. So you have most of the Arayos really you can never have relations with at all, right? So all the incest categories, homosexual relations, bestiality, right, is never at all. And then you have next is with women who are mutter to you. So first of all, it has to be through the institution of chuppah and kiddushin. And even then, you have nida, which is that not at all times or certain other times of the year, like Yom Kippur or whatever you can't have. So the loose general idea of this bracha is shevach to God on the institution of Kedushas Yisrael through the sexual. Now, what are all the details? That we're not going to go into tonight because Yehoshua and I didn't prepare that. We just tried to get a basic idea because we want to focus on the Sheva Berachos. Yeah.
So just a good question. What's the difference between betrothed woman and permitted woman in this context?
Well, so
Erusin
Erusin is when you say Harat Mekudeshes Li, and she's usher to all men, and then chuppah and chuppah is matir her for you, for the one who marries her.
Yeah, I know. So that's my question. Like,
why do you have to mention both?
Yeah,
it's a good question. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So again, we spent like one day on this, and so that's that. Okay. But now we get to the Sheva Berachos. Okay. So let's do a quick translation. Okay, and then we'll try to go through the ideas. Okay. So the first one is break off, and we know that, right? Yehoshua, the source of blessing, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. 2. Yeah.
Do you want the questions now?
No, not now. We're gonna do the bird's eye view, and then we'll go back. Okay. And I'm not even sure if I want to take all questions systematically. I'll take questions that All right. Yehoshua are the source of all blessed. Oh, by the way, as we go through this, let me do a background thing. There's 2 types of brachos in brachos. There's a bracha katsara and a bracha arechta, right, or arucha, right? So bracha katsara is a 1-sentence bracha that just has one bracha to Hashem, and then a bracha arucha starts with baruch, has stuff in the middle, and then ends with baruch. And then what's the rule about bracha arechtas in a series?
If there's a discontinuance in like the first side of the not a discontinuance, it's like a different topic within the bracha.
No, that's not what I'm thinking of.
Multiple of them that are made at the end.
Yeah, if you no, that is true. That is true. So every bracha aricha needs to start with baruch and ends with baruch. But what about birkas hamazon, where we only start with baruch and end with baruch on the first one, but then nodeh lecha and rachem we don't, or in the Shemona Esrei where we only say Magen Avraham with baruch and end with baruch and then the rest of them we don't. Where does that come from? Yeah, David.
Where does it come from?
Or no, where's it come from? But what is that principle?
So with the brachas that all you need is just the end.
Okay, so there's this principle called a brucha hasmucha lechaverta, which means when you have a series of bracha aruchas, bracha ariftas, the first one needs to start with baruch and end with baruch, but then any one that is after that in the series, it doesn't need to start with baruch. It could like piggyback on the baruch from the first one. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we read through these. All right.
I misunderstood.
Okay, yeah, maybe I misspoke it. Yeah.
These brachos are Sheva.
These are brachos. The simple answer is yes. Yeah, we'll see that there's one thing that the Abudirim seems to indicate that it's not exclusively Shavach. Okay, so second bracha. Yehoshua, the source of blessing, King of the universe, that everything was created for his glory. Again, this is another great example of second person switching to third person, right? You don't say Shakol Barasa Lichodacha. You say Shakol Bara Lichodo. Okay. I've been at more than one wedding where the guy accidentally said this as Shakol Niebivaro. Okay, don't do that if you ever get the first bracha. Okay, and if you do, then just find something to eat really quickly. Okay, 3. Baruch Hashem Elokeinu L'Chalam Yotzer Ha'adam. Now, I struggle to translate this. Okay, I usually translate Yotzer as to form. The problem is in the next bracha, we're going to have a lot of form words, so I didn't want to use up my form word here. So to fashion is good. So what I would have said is Yehoshua, the source of blessing, King of the universe, who fashions the man. Okay, but you'll see that that also doesn't work out when we get to another bracha later on. Okay, so fashioner, the fashioner of man. Okay, of the man. All right, bracha number 4. Baruch Hashem Elokeinu L'Chalam asher yatzar es hadam b'tzalmo, who fashioned the man in his form. Okay, capital H. B'tselem demus tavniso, which we're not translating right now. Okay, I want to save this for the end, but the whole rigmarole, is that a word, that we went through is that there's a whole big problem with this bracha that because of the problem, then when Yehoshua and I were learning it, then he said, can I give you that bracha? I said, sure, I'll work it out. I thought I worked it out, and then on the eve of the wedding, I realized it doesn't make sense. And then I had to go through the whole thing with Rav Pesach, and then I finally asked Rebbe, and then I got it all worked out, and I have it all on paper here. Okay, so we'll. I want to have this all in one spot for posterity. Okay, but for now we won't translate it. Okay, you just B'tselem demus, tavniso. Okay, v'hiskin lo mimenu binyan ariad. Very strange phrase. And he established. This is a better word. Okay, I'm going to use a weird term here. So letakin either means to enact, to establish, or to fix. So strictly speaking, the best thing would be he fixed for him, but that, first of all, to me, I don't like it because it implies broken. And we only in English use the word to fix. I fixed this for you. Like in America, what?
An American movie. I mean,
oh yeah, is there a British one that's different?
Yeah, you fix someone a meal. Or
yeah, a meal, right? So I fixed him something. I think of meals. Yeah, right. So I'm gonna say established for him, but we'll see that fix is not inaccurate.
So, like AF.
No.
I'm suggesting.
Oh,
That's a different word than without that context.
yes. That I think of mezuzahs because that's the only context I ever hear of a fix a mezuzah, right?
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't even think that that's what a fix means, does it? A fix is to attach. Yeah, that's why it's likboa mezuzah is or alkavius mezuzah. All right.
What do you think of
Prepare. So prepare is good, but that has a different connotation, a different meaning than the one that we want to get here. You'll see why when we go through the meanings. V'hiskin lo mimenu. He established for him, from him, an everlasting building. Yeah, exactly. Baruch Hashem Yotzer Adam. You, Hashem, are the source of blessing who fashions the man. Yeah.
The ashar is right. That's a capital his.
That's a capital his.
Okay.
Is the other one a capital his? That's the dicey issue. Okay. All right. Next. Mimenu. Yeah, from him. Yeah, for him, from him. Lo mimenu. Okay. All right. 5. Sos tasis v'tagel ha'akara. The barren woman will surely rejoice and be glad. B'kibbutz baneha lotocha b'simcha, when her children are gathered into her midst in joy. Baruch Hashem, Yehoshua, the source of blessing. Mismech Tzion b'vaneha, who causes Tzion to be happy with her children. Okay, 6. So, I copied and pasted this from Chabad. I think we say samech tesamach, not samach tesamach. Samech tesamach reim ha'ahuvim. You should surely rejoice, beloved companions. Okay, and we said, strictly speaking, reacha, comrades is the best translation, but that sounds too Soviet for my taste. As your fashioner caused you to rejoice in the Garden of Eden long ago. Baruch Hashem, Yehoshua, the source of blessing, chosson, who causes the groom and bride to be happy. Okay, now this last one I had to bust out all the synonyms for joy. Okay, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Yehoshua, the source of blessing. King of the universe, ashar barasasim simcha, who created joy and happiness, chosson v'kala, groom and bride, gila, rina, ditza v'chedva. Okay, gila is I translated here as cheer. Rina is joyous song. Okay, and just FYI, rina is one of those words like trua that can either mean joyous song or sad song. Okay, so you have to get it from context here. It definitely means joyous. Ditza is the one I hear the least. Okay, delight, chedva, elation, ahava va'ahava, love and brotherhood, shalom v're'us, peace and companionship or comradeship. Mehera Hashem Elokeinu yishama bar Yehuda v'chutzos Yerushalayim. May you cause to be heard in the cities of Judah and in the outskirts of Jerusalem. What was it? Quickly, thank you. May you quickly.
You have it. It's just...
Oh, sorry, yeah, I didn't read it. Quickly, O Hashem our God, may you cause to be heard in the cities of Judah and the outskirts of Jerusalem. Kol sasam kol simcha, the sound of joy and the sound of happiness. Kol chasam kol kala, the sound of a groom and the sound of a bride. Kol mitzhalos chasanim mechupasam, the sound of exultation. And again, just a basic English thing here. Exalt means to praise. Exult means to joyously cry out. Okay, I did not know that there were two different words for a very long time. From their chuppahs and youths from their mimishte niginasam, from their celebration songs. Okay, Baruch Hashem Mesmech Hasan Im Hakala. You Hashem, the source of blessing, who brings happiness to the groom with the bride. Okay, so here is all 7 at a bird's eye view, and we're gonna go ahead and just acknowledge here. Okay, so actually, let's do this. Again, for the sake of comprehensiveness, I think it would not be wise for us to ask all questions now. So instead, what I'll do is I'm going to present the ideas, and if you have further questions, you can ask them, and we can tackle them. Okay, so the biggest chiddush. So I had my own understanding of the whole Sheva Berachos from just going to lots of weddings, and I never looked into it. And then what we did is Yehoshua and I went into the Mefarshim, and we found out that there's a halachic anatomy to these brachos, which makes it doesn't render my interpretation untrue, but it makes it like a Venn diagram where mine still works out, but it doesn't take into account the halachos. And so I want to express it through the halachos, and then afterwards I'll give you my layman's pirush. Okay, so here's how the anatomy works. Okay, Brei Gafen is not one of the Sheva Berachos. Okay.
My question was like, is it just there just because you need a coast?
Exactly. So really, it's you should say this bracha on a coast, and there's all these questions that Yehoshua and I spent days on about like, do you need a coast and bediavad and can it be shechar and that's all that fun stuff. Okay, but this is not really one of the Sheva Berachos. Okay, so we're going to put it in gray. Okay, the rest of the Sheva Berachos could be divided up into categories and subcategories. Okay, so the overarching category is there is here. Hold on. These 3, okay, are one category. Okay. And these 2 are another category. And really, this one is the pivot. What was that? Yeah.
You were number 5, and I was like, that's so out of
okay, yeah. So these are the real. So okay, it turns out, okay, and this is going to be weird to say. I'm just going to tell you now in advance so you can like prime your mind. The only 2 brachos that are about the marriage are 6 and 7. Okay. 5 is here for another reason, which we'll talk about. Okay. 2, 3, and 4. So 2 is here for something else. 4 is here as a bridge to the marriage, and 3 is dragged in because of 4. Okay, I'll explain what all this means when we go through it. Do you have a question, Yaakov? Okay, all right. So here's the deal. Okay, so I'm actually going to switch back and forth between reading and paraphrasing. So this one you might have heard Yehoshua talk about on Friday night if you were here. So I'm going to read this one because the Abu Dirim, so the Otzar Tefilos, again, Otzar Tefilos is, in my opinion, if you had to get one commentary on Tefilah to learn, the Otzar Tefilos Siddur with the Eitz Yosef is the best commentary. He's essentially a digest of Rishonim, but he also has his own original insights, which are all very good. And most importantly, he's holding in the Yesodei HaTorah, okay, and like says really good, clear ideas, and like stays away from like a kfira, which is always good in appears on tefillas because you don't want those ideas entering your mind. So here's what the Eitz Yosef says. He says, "Shakol bar lechboda, everything is created for his glory. Al shem hakasuv ose shalom ubore es hakol." Okay, it's based on the pasuk, who makes peace and creates everything. Where do you recognize that from? Brooke. Okay, anyone know he pulled a fast one on us here? Anyone know the fast one he pulled? It's not what the pasuk says, right? What's the pasuk?
It's
The Gemara does mention that, right? But so it says, but for the Ose Shalom Ubore, Bore Ra. So the pasuk is Bore Ra, and then there's a whole sugya about why it changes it to hakol. Okay, but it's plain pshat is it's lashon naki, right? It's like a euphemism. We don't want to say that God creates evil, even though it's a true idea. We don't want to say that like in our tefillos. Okay, here comes now. So that's the whole idea. Okay, and that goes into the Ram in the morning Nevuchim on evil. Yeah, in three. Yeah.
Doesn't he dresses that part?
He dresses that. Yeah. That's a very important thing in the morning Nevuchim to learn. Is it starts in 3:8. And Yehoshua tried to drag me into that, and I resisted. So yeah. Okay. Otherwise, we would not be here doing this today. Okay, we would still be in that. Okay. Yeah. All right. Upirish Rashi brachazo niskna la'asifas ha'am hane'asafim sham ligmo chesed lechavod hamakom. Okay, so it is a bracha that was established for the gathering of the people who are gathered to be gomel chesed to ligmo chesed. I think the Abudim says gomel chesed lechasim lekala. Okay, and that's lechavod hamakom. Why? Zecher lechasadav shenahag im Adam harishon shenasa lo shushvin v'nisasek bo. So this is a zecher for the kindness that God did with Adam, that God became Adam's groomsman. It's a weird midrash, and was like helped him with his needs. Okay, and how did God help Adam with his needs? He made chava. Okay, best thing you can do as a groomsman is create the bride from the rib of the God. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is so this is what I meant, that this is not a bracha on the marriage. It's a bracha on the gathering of the people who are there for the marriage. Now, just side idea, which I told to Yehoshua, and I also told this to my other student Rivki last night, that they both said that this really helped them with the with framing the entire wedding. Is so mitzvot, Tami mitzvahs fall into three categories, right? According to the Rambam and the Ramban, mitzvahs are there either for intellectual perfection, which is to give you a true idea, remove a false idea; for ethical perfection, to instill a good midah or remove a bad midah; or for society, right, is to promote chesed, tzedakah, and mishpat in society, or remove the opposites. Okay, so there was one time when I was at a wedding and I was not in the mood to mingle, so I spotted Rabbi Moskowitz. So I went to Rabbi Moskowitz and said, Rabbi Moskowitz, there are tamei mitzvahs for all the mitzvahs, and these are the three categories. What is the tamei mitzvah for being masameach the chosson and the kala? Okay, so the answer he gave me, and he didn't quote a source, I don't know if this is his own idea or if he read it somewhere, is he said, he really explained it in the third category. Okay, secondarily, you could say it's the ethical, and then tertiarily, you could say it's the intellectual. But he said primarily, he says that a marriage is a time of extreme uncertainty and fear and insecurity for the couple, because first of all, they are ending their independent single lives, right, and emerging as a semicolon, right, and in many cases now this creates tremendous obligations in terms of typically the husband to provide for the wife this pressure, well, for both of them really to create a family. Many times they have to move, certainly out of their parents' houses usually, and sometimes even moving, a lot of stress. So Rabbi Moskowitz says that the idea of having being Musamech Chassan and the Kala and having the 7 days of Mishteh is that all of their friends and family come together to give them this boost of emotional support, which helps them to transition to this next phase of life with the confidence that everyone's behind them. So it's a very good, nice idea to have in mind. I think this idea, more than the Sheva Berachos ideas that I'm going to go over, I always have this in mind when I'm at the weddings. And I see sometimes, I don't know if any of you had this at recent weddings, but there's everyone dancing, and sometimes you get this little like in a movie where the music fades, and you kind of step outside of yourself and just see the entire scene, and can appreciate it. I think of that there when of this idea there that everyone's there to support the chosson and the kala. So that's the gemilus chesed in the chosson and kala thing, which is why, by the way, the Rambam brings this down, not in the halachos of the weddings, but the place where he talks about being. Anyone know where he talks about being smech chosson and the kala? It's a weird place.
Based on everything you're saying.
Yeah, I don't even know if you'd be able to get it based on everything I'm saying unless you knew ahead of time. The hint is that you can make a joke out of it. Is it's in the laws of mourning. Okay, yeah. So right, So no. So at the very end is he says at the very end he says the mitzvah of Gimulus Chasadim, and he has the L'Sameach Chassan Bakala, and not only that, but this is the other weird thing which I've never gone into the sugya. who set up the takana of having 7 days of Mishteh? No, Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so where do you see this in the first halach in Hilchos Eivel? So mitzvah to say lihisabel akrovim. Rambam holds it's a mitzvah to say to mourn the your relatives. Ve'ein avilos min Torah ela b'yom rishon bilvad. Okay, sheyom hamiz v'yom kavura. Rambam holds it's only a mitzvah d'oraisa on the day of death and the day of burial. Ashar shiva einan din Torah. Okay, etc., etc. Okay, and then I'm skipping stuff. Moshe Rabbeinu tikin lahem l'Yisrael shivas yimei avelos v'shivas yimei hamishteh. So there is a relationship between the two takanos: 7 days of mourning and 7 days of the partying with the chosson and kala. I don't know what the sugi is. I'm just showing it to you.
Support from what you said.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you're right. That works out, doesn't it? Okay, all right. Yes, very good, very good. Okay, yeah, all right. So
It's like the total, like, support.
yeah, is a full week. Yeah, because I think a week is the unit, the next unit after a day, right? Like in people's minds, you know.
It's funny how like Moshe is Siddur, but it's not in the Torah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a couple of things like that. Kanos Moshe. Yeah. Okay.
But it
Yeah.
also like has like obviously a lot of weight behind it, so it's kind of
Exactly. Yeah.
Moshe-
Okay. Okay, so onward here, but then there's another idea also, which is so Rashi says it's a kavod hamakom because when we're all gathered here to be gomel chesed to the chosson and kala, that's a reminder that God was gomel chesed to Adam Harishon, and so when we think of that, that's kavod hamakom. To me, that's a little removed. Then he quotes the Ramah. Now this is not the Ramosha Isilis the Ramah. This is the Yad Ramah, who is Abu Lafia. No, so Yad Ramah is Meir Abu Lafia. Okay, this is one of the first people who opposed the Rambam philosophically, broke through the thing. So
Not the Kabbalist, Abu Lafia.
I think it's the same family, but I think he was no, he was not a Kabbalist. But there's not the
It's not the Abu Lafia, though.
not the woo Kabbalist. There's the Abu Lafia Kabbalist who had this special thing of Kabbalah with the spirals and getting to a meditative state by like spinning. I think, yeah, it's quite a wild ride. Yeah, I think that was an Abu Lafia. Yeah,
I gotta find that.
and the one was he the same Abu Lafia? Was he the same one who tried to convert the Pope? There was a Kabbalist who tried to go convert the Pope. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's a great family. Great family. It's a very diversity of views here.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, we have a Abu Lafia family in Seattle, the descendants. Yeah. All right. Varama pirish sheniskana bracha zo k'dei lahaskir sibas hazivug. So the Rama says that this bracha was established to remind you of the cause of the couple, of the marriage. He doesn't say marriage, but whatever, the zivug, the pairing. What was that? Yeah, pairing. Shehu ikar yitziras ha'olam hatachton, which is the main purpose for the existence of Earth. Shalom nivra ela l'piri of Rivia. Now, if you stop there, then that sounds weird, right? That Earth was only created to repopulate. Okay, but that's not the case. Shenemar, as it says, lo l'tohu barasa l'sheves yatzara. In Yeshayahu, it says, God did not create the earth to be void, but to be settled. He formed it. V'zehu kavod hashamakom. This is a kavod to God. She'ein kavod habore noda ela al yidei briosav. The glory of God is only known through his creations. Shenemar, as it says, kol hanikra b'shmi u'lichvodi barasiv. So the full pasuk says, kol hanikra b'shmi u'lichvodi barasiv yatzartiv af asisiv. Everything that is called in my name, I have, and for my honor, I have created it, I have formed it, and I have even done it. Okay, so the main idea here is that you have this gathering of people for the marriage. Okay, so this is my understanding of this. Okay, which is like this. It's very easy. Okay, so what's the purpose of all brachos?
To redirect your mindset.
Yeah.
when you're doing something.
Exactly, to redirect your mindset. So whenever there's a danger, your mindset is going to go in some bad direction, or just go to whatever default there is. It redirects it to true ideas and to ideas of perfection. So at a marriage, what natural, non-ideal places would your mind go to?
It's funny you say that because like the fact that he's already up there and getting married, to one person, it's almost like he's already in that mindset versus someone who's single. And like, I'm just giving you like a hobby. I'm not.
Okay, so one possibility is that he's only going to be thinking about like the fact that this woman is going to be mutter to him. Okay, but remember, this is not just for him. This is for everybody, right?
For everyone.
Yeah. So how might people frame the marriage in wrong ways? Or not wrong. I don't want to say wrong. Like
just like simply as a phenomenon of being needing companionship.
How do most people in the world relate to weddings?
Party.
party,
Big old
right?
party.
A joy, a party or a personal joy, right? Or I guess in other cases it could be redirected in like unhealthy or bad directions. So what this does is this bracha recognizes that we're all gathered here for an institution of kedusha, facilitating pru uravu for the sake of kavod Hashem, which is the purpose of man, is to recognize kavod Hashem. So this is my theory of the Sheva Berachos, is that my whole theory of the Sheva Berachos, again, which is not going to be contradicted by what we learn now, is that it's framing the entire wedding going from universal to particular. Okay, so it starts with where's the purpose of the universe is kavod habore. And then what Rashi and the Yad Ramah say is that the people gathered here should recognize that's why we're gathered here, to be gomel chesed to the chosson and kala, and to facilitate the institution that leads to pru uravu, which populates the world with people who can recognize God. Yeah.
And I think specifically like pointing out that he's making a point like you're saying of like recognizing pru uravu in the positive way, because I think it's interesting that the Gemara when it talks about nipple pet.
Yeah.
Like the classic case is that it says that people who sit at a wedding and say, "I know what the chosson and kala are going to do tonight."
Okay.
It's not like the classic case that the Gemara brings out as like
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point, and that actually reminds me. Remind me when we get to the seventh bracha, if I forget, that there's an actual nivel peh results in a change of the text of a bracha here. Okay, so which I've never seen before. All right. So that's shokol bar lichvoda. Okay. Next, I'm not going to read through the commentary for all of them. Okay, so then once you talk about God creating everything, right, as occasioned by this thing, then we start talking about the creation of Adam and Chava. Okay, so really, according to the Abudirim, we want to just make this bracha. And what is this bracha about? So it is ashar yatzar es Adam b'tzalmo. That's talking about the Tzelem Elokim. Okay. B'tzelem demus tavniso. Now, the part I'll tell you now is tavnis means physical structure. So this is talking about the physical structure of man's body. Okay, but there are problems there. Okay. Now, v'hiskin lo mimenu binyan ade ad. What does that mean? What do you think that's referring to? He fixed for him, from him, a building forever.
That also kind of sounds like Tzelem.
No.
It says like
What did God fix from him?
Chava.
Chava.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is talking about Chava. Okay, and why would it call her a building? Because what? No.
But it's sounding strong.
Okay, I mean that's actually a plausible interpretation. There's a more primary reason though.
Because buildings have to last a long time.
Use the word even talking about.
Yes, that's the reason. Okay, right. So and this just kind of pushes the question one more spot back. But when he creates Chava, so first of all, the reason why it says why would it say like misakein? He fixed. What is the brokenness? It's not good for man to be alone. Lo tov yosam levado, lo ezer kenegdo. And then when he creates Chava, it says vayiven Hashem Elokim. God built the side or the rib that he took from man into a woman. So and the reason why that's why it's binyan, and it's a binyan adead because it is not just talking about Adam and Chava. It's talking about the institution of man and woman for all times, but it's starting with Adam and Chava. And then once you have, so this bracha is really on the creation of basically like the phenomenon of human couples. Okay, but so why do we only say this bracha? So the thing is that once you're talking about the creation of Adam, it would be an omission to not mention the fact that God created man alone first. So you have a separate shevach of God creating man alone, but then what you really want to get to is God creating the man and the woman, and that's a preface to talking about this marriage.
The first mitzvah in the Torah, right?
It is the first mitzvah in the Torah. Yeah, correct. First mitzvah, yeah, listed in the Torah. Yeah. So I think for two reasons. One is because it would be an incomplete account of the creation of man if you didn't talk about the fact that God, just like Yotzer Ha'adam. But I think the reason that we read is that that is the Adam was created Yechidi, and then God made a wife for him, which is what makes this whole thing into a unit here of like, especially going to Rashi, God, was Gomel Chesed Adam. Oh, sorry, that would go out of order then. No, I think it's just the idea that to reference the lo toveos adam levado, and so that really shows the idea of ezer kenegdo. That man was created alone and is incomplete, and then now God completed him by creating woman. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the way we know this is a trio here is he said that pasuk in Shayahu. So the pasuk says kol nikra b'shmi l'chvodi barasiv yatzartiv af hasisiv. So he says each one alludes to this. L'chvodi barasiv k'neged shal kol bar l'chvodo yatzartiv k'neged yatzar adam and af hasisiv k'neged ashar yatzar as adam. So that's a unit. So the purpose of that is to set the framework for then talking about the couple. Yeah, Tamar.
It seems like I'm not really getting why I guess the third bracha is necessary. I mean, it does talk about Adam first in 4, right? Does that just mean people in that context, or is that also Adam?
So yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Okay. All right. So then we get into 5. So what is 5 about, and what is it doing here?
I mean, if I had to make an assumption.
Yeah.
It's like that idea of bringing in like the hormone.
Yes.
Into like your happy times.
Correct. Right. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I forgot one important point. Sorry. Let me back up for 1 second. If this is on the Asifas Ha'am, so why are we saying it as part of the Sheva Berachos? Like if this is not actually the bracha on the wedding, it's just the people who are gathered for the wedding. These 3 brachos, or really these 2. Well, Shakol Bar L'Chvodo is not talking about the couple, and neither is Yosra. It does apply to everyone. That's true. Yeah. So yeah,
you're like creating like a structure of like all the people that are there. Like
close.
Like,
it's a much more boring halachic reason.
Oh,
Okay, which is that once you are being masadir brachos al hakos, then you incorporate all the brachos that are said at that time onto the kos. And when do we do that? When can you think of a time where there are brachos that don't need to be said on a kos, but we're masadir them on a kos anyway because they're said at the same time?
Just the same time.
So benching the entire thing is al hakos. Pesach might be a good example. I have to think through that. So the more frequent time, Havdalah, right? So what has to be al hakos on Havdalah? And Havdalah, right? So the Besamim and the Eish, you could just do separately, right? But because on Motzei Shabbos you are chayav in smelling Besamim and you have to make a bracha on them, and because you're chayav in saying a bracha on the Eish, we put them all at kos. So that's why. So really, I'm not poskening, but it stands to reason from what they're saying. If you just said the bracha of Shakol Bar L'Chvodo, and like let's say you found out that something was wrong with the kos or whatever, then like you yote that bracha. Like it's not part of the actual seder of the Sheva Berachos. Yeah.
Random question. Do you need 10 people for?
Yes.
For
you do need 10 people for this bracha. Yeah.
For what?
You need 10 people for the Sheva for these brachos. Yeah.
Even under the chuppah?
Even under the chuppah, yeah. And this gets into a complicated halachic issue though, because about what the chuppah is. So I don't want to go into any more depth on that. Yeah.
Because I had a question of like really this should be a message, primarily to the people at the wedding.
Yeah, this is one of these rare cases where we have a bracha. It's not a davar shebei kedusha, but it does require a minyan. Okay, because it's a public bracha for the community.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. That is for everyone. Okay, so anyway, so now really 6 and 7 are about the couple. Okay, but sorry, say again.
Did you answer the question exactly?
Which one?
No. Of why you needed these 2? Why you're having sorry, you did. Why bringing Corbin then?
Oh no, that's one I'm going to answer now. Yeah. Okay. So 6 and 7 are really about the couple, but then we say the Imesh Yerushalayim Tishkach Yemini. What?
What's 1 of 4?
We'll get to that in a second. So yeah, 4 is green because it's the end of this series and it's the bridge to this series. Okay, but first we're going to explain 5. So 5 is that you can't be right? You can't raise anything over. I knew I was saying it wrong. If I don't raise Yerushalayim over my high simcha. So at the times of the great simcha, you have to remember Yerushalayim, which is why nowadays they break the glass, but the original one was the ashes on the forehead, which we still do, and they did a bunch of things. Also like the chosson used to wear crowns, and they made it to not wear crowns at the wedding, which is why we don't do them, I guess, we put this here because since the only brachos about the simcha of this couple are 6 and 7, we precede that with remembering Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim is compared. Yerushalayim is compared to lots of things, but it uses the mashal of a woman who doesn't have her children, because that is a mashal that's like thematically appropriate to the wedding, right? Of a woman and having children. Okay, so that's why we say that here. Okay, all right. So then, and you know what? I'm gonna deploy this idea now. Okay, I could do it later, but so every wedding they sing Od Yishama, right? Okay, so I had this at Nathan and Yael's wedding. Then I decided while I was waiting to look up the source of the pasuk, because I always like looking stuff up in context. Okay, and this is the only time I've ever looked up the pasuk and been literally horrified. Okay, yeah. So the pasuk appears 4 times. Oops, no, sorry, chosson. I typed it wrong. Chosson. Okay, literally horrified. Okay, so I'll be prepared to be horrified. Okay, so it appears 4 times in Yirmiyahu. Okay, right, but not the phrase kol chosson v'kol simcha, kol chassan v'kol kala.
Oh, really?
Right, yeah. So it's 4 times in Yirmiyahu. Okay, so first time is in 734, and I'm going to read it to you in context. Okay, so it says, therefore, behold, the days are coming, the word of Hashem, when it shall no longer be called the Teves and the valley of Gehinnom, okay, which is where they used to slaughter things in bad place, but the valley of killing, for they will bury in Teves until there is no more room. The corpses of this people will become food for the birds of the heavens and the animals of the earth, and none will make them afraid. I will eliminate from the cities of Judah and from the cities of Jerusalem the sound of joy and the sound of gladness, the sound of groom and the sound of bride, for the land will become ruin. Okay, okay, that's source number 1. Okay, the second one is the worst one. Okay, this is in Yirmiyahu 16:9. Okay, so we're going to rev into it a little bit. 16:9. Yeah. So the word, let's start here. Yeah. Also, do not go to a house of Mary. Oh, no. We'll start here. Yeah, the word of Hashem came to me saying, do not take for yourself a wife so that you do not have sons and daughters in this place. For thus said Hashem concerning the sons and daughters who were born in this place, and concerning their mothers who give birth to them, and their fathers who beget them in this land. They will die as victims of diseases. They will not be eulogized nor buried. Like dung upon the face of the earth they will be. By the sword and by the famine they will perish, and their carcasses will be food for the birds of the heavens and the animals of the earth. For thus says Hashem, do not go to a house of mourning, and do not eulogize nor shake your head for them. For I have revoked my peace and kindness and mercy from this people, the word of Hashem. Great and small will die in this land and will not be buried. No one will eulogize them, nor cut himself, nor tear out his hair for them. No one will break bread for their bereavement to comfort the dead. No one will offer them a cup of consolations for their father and for their mother. Also, do not go to a house of merrymaking to sit with them and to eat and drink. For thus says Hashem, Master of Legions, God of Israel, behold, I am abolishing from this place before your eyes and in your days the sound of joy and the sound of gladness, the sound of groom and the sound of bride. Okay, and then people cry out for why does this happen? And then the third one is you could probably guess similar, which is in 25:10. Shorter context here, 25:10. Therefore, thus says Hashem, Master of Legions, because you have not heeded my words, behold, I'm sending and will take all the families of the north, the word of Hashem, and I'm sending to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylonia, my servant, and I shall bring them upon this land and upon its inhabitants and upon all the surrounding nations, and I shall destroy them and make them places of desolation and whistling and eternal ruins. I shall eliminate from them the sound of joy, the sound of gladness, the sound of groom, and the sound of bride, the sound of mill, and the sound of light of candle. So I'm sitting here at this wedding, scrolling through. I'm like, no, and then the sad face is getting like, sadder. But then you get to the last one. The last one is in 33:11. And in that one, it starts off with, the word of Hashem came to Jeremiah a second time while he was still being detained in the courtyard of confinement, saying, thus said Hashem, its maker, Hashem is fashioning and to establish, Hashem is his name. Call to me and I'll answer you. Let me skip a little bit. Behold, I'm bringing a remedy and a cure, and I will heal them, and I shall reveal to them an abundance of peace and truth. I will return the captivity of Judah and the captivity of Israel, and I will rebuild them as at first. I will cleanse them of all their sins that they committed against me, and I will forgive all their iniquities that they committed against me, and that they transgressed before me. And this will be for me for the sake of rejoicing, for praise and for splendor before all the nations of the earth, who will hear about all the goodness that I shall be doing for them, and who will fear and tremble over all the goodness and all the peace that I will do for it. Thus said Hashem, there will again be heard, Od Yishama, in this place about which you shall say it is destroyed without man and without animal, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem that are desolate, without man and without inhabitant and without animal. The sound of joy and the sound of gladness, the sound of groom, the sound of bride, the sound of people saying, praise Hashem, Master of Legions, for Hashem is good, for his mercy is forever, bringing thanksgiving offerings to the temple of Hashem, for I will return the captivity of the land as at first, said Hashem. Now, I don't know about you, for me, knowing this context changes the way I hear Odi Shama at a wedding. How would you describe like how it might change or shift your hearing of it?
It's like a bouncing back.
It's a bouncing back, right? This is the same thing. Side note here is that, the only people who get the minhag, who I know who get the minhag correct for Shir Hamalos is Chabad, because Chabad, the real minhag, the way it was instituted by the Shla, is to say Al Naharos Bavel during every benching during the week, and then on Shabbos and Yom Tov you contrast Al Naharos Bavel with Shir Hamalos. There is no minhag to just say Shir Hamalos on Shabbos and Yom Tov. It's just not a minhag. It's a thing people do, but it's not a minhag, So, and we know this because the Shloss is the one who started the minhag. I think it's the first time in the Mishnah Berurah. So similarly here, I think we just think about Odi Sham Var Yehuda, and I don't think we think about the word Ode. I mean, maybe we do on some level, but really, if we were literate in Tanakh, you would hear this, and the majority of references you would think of would be to the destruction and the abolishment of like this joy, and Yirmiyahu comes back, swings back the end and says, no, it will one day be heard again. So I think like that is a thought that now that I know that this fifth bracha is about the Churban on Yerushalayim, and remembering that, then I start thinking about that idea here, and what is the idea of the, obviously we have the Simchas Chosson and Kala here. So I think the idea, two things to think about of the Simchas Chosson and Kala now is either that, I've only heard this quoted by Rav Pesach. I don't know where it is actually inside, but Rav Pesach quoted Aristotle as saying that the household is the smallest building block of society. Like you have individuals and then the building blocks of the household. So part of the simcha of this wedding and the emphasis on Yerushalayim is that this couple, like the Bayis Ne'eman B'Yisrael, is the building blocks of the Am Yisrael, which will eventually become the Malchus Yisrael, which we will have at the time of Mashiach. So you're rejoicing here is like a taste. First of all, it's an active step towards reaching the Geula, and it's a taste of the type of joy that will be there, but it's not complete yet. And if you want, I don't remember if Johnny wrote it up, but side point, Johnny had the craziest experience of everybody so there was in the summer, so Isaac got married, and then John and Abigail got married, Isaac and Aviva, and then John and Abigail got married 2 weeks later. So in between, Johnny completed his genocide tour. So Johnny did this genocide tour where he went to Rwanda and familiarized himself with the Rwandan genocide, then went to Armenia and Turkey and familiarized himself with that. And then the last stop was bracketed. He literally left Isaac's wedding in the middle of the wedding to go to the airport, and then came back right to John's wedding, going to Poland and Germany and the concentration camps in between. And he said that he had a moment at John and Abigail's wedding where it was almost like a PTSD type response, where he saw everybody dead, like all of the people. Like he's like all the people here, all of all of his friends and community and stuff, saw them dead. Because he realized, from going through Germany and Poland, why isn't that us? That could happen to us, and we happen to be in this weird bubble right now where this is not happening. But for the vast majority of Jewish history, it is. So, I feel like those ideas of the destruction would be much more real to us at other eras of Jewish history than it is now. So we have to artificially generate that by thinking about it. But that's what the Churban idea is, I think. Or part of it, yeah. Okay, so that's what bracha number 5 is. Okay, so then we get to number 6. So bracha number 6, I'm going to go over time because I want to finish this. If you have to leave, you can leave. But bracha number 6, I'm just going to read you the very short thing that he says here. Is wait for it. Oh, so I always thought the Reim Ahuvim is all the friends of the everyone who's there. No, Reim Ahuvim is the couple. Okay. Is just the couple themselves, the chosson and the kala, and this is a bracha where we say, hold on. So the Eitz Yosef says, quoting the Abudirim, "Shem reim ahuvim zel lezeh," they are beloved friends to each other, and this is a bracha l'samcham b'zivugam. So this is why I said when you asked, is this shavach? Someone else is this shavach, right? Yaakov. So he said it's l'samcham b'zivugam v'hitzlicham b'masei yedehem, to bring them joy in their marriage and to bring them success in the work of their hands. Kisimchas zivug adam harishon b'gan eden. Okay, Ubrachazo he derech shevach v'hoda'a l'makom al yitziras. Oh no, that's gonna be the last one. Hold on. Yeah, I think he transitioned. No. Okay, yeah. I think must be a mistake here. Okay, hold on just a second. So this is a bracha for the success and the happiness of the couple. Okay, and that's why we say chosson v'chala it's for both of them. Okay, and then the last one is he says is I think bracha Zo is talking about the last one is derech sheva hoda l'makom al yitziras hasimcha on the creation of simcha. That's definitely talking about the last one, right? Va'zivug ba'olam and marriage in the world l'sha'avar for the past litzok lasi lavo al simchas Yerushalayim. And to cry out to the future for Simchas Yerushalayim. That's definitely the last one because we talk about Yerushalayim there. Lefika chosin ba'osa bracha rishona mismei chosson v'chala. So that's why in bracha number 6 we say chosson v'chala mipnei shehi derech bakasha. There you go. It's a bakasha v'tzarich levakesh rachamim al shnehem. So that bracha is wishing for rachamim on both of them. V'im haya chosin mismei chosson im hakala lo haya b'mashma simcha elo lechosson bilvad. So he learns that when you say chosson im hakala, it's really the chosson's joy with the kala, but the one that's talking about both their joys is the 6th bracha. So in this last bracha, it's a bracha on the entire simcha of the entire event and on asking God for the future joy. And the reason why this one starts with baruch and ends with baruch, I don't know if you notice here, we had short bracha, long bracha, okay, because this is the weird thing. So bracha number 4 is the end of the series of brachos that are occasioned by the gathering for the wedding. But it's the first bracha that talks about marriage. So it's both the end of the first series and the beginning of the second series. And because it's the beginning of the second series, it starts with baruch and ends with baruch. And all the other brachos are smucha l'chaverta. But the last one, why is the last one start and end with the baruch if it is for the wedding? Because halachically, this is, so you make all these brachos at the chuppah and you also make them at the meal at the wedding, okay? But for the other 6 days of the mishteh, you only make the last bracha after benching unless there's panim chadashos. If there's panim chadashos, the idea is then you make all sheva brachos because they didn't get a chance to hear it at the wedding. Okay, so that's what, since this bracha was said, it can stand on its own. They were masaking it with baruch at the beginning and baruch at the end, and the rest of the brachos are only ever said as part of the sheva brachos. Yeah. So in terms of the way I understood this again, which is not so different, but I just wanted to say, you start off with the purpose of the universe, and then you hone in on the creation of man, b'tselem Elokim, with his wife, then with his Ezer Kenegdo, I mean, right? Like the idea of Ezer Kenegdo, that you need both them to for the perfection of Tzelem Elokim. Then you have remembering Yerushalayim, which is really not part of the series intrinsically. Then you talk about the couple, but you connect it to Gan Eden. You say that may they have simcha like the way that God brought them simcha in Gan Eden, which is saying that their simcha should be rooted in a mutual recognition of Tzelem Elokim and Ezer Kenegdo, and it should be based on those values. Okay, so that's the connection between the first set and the second set. And you're also wishing them success and happiness. And then the last one is talking about the simcha of the event itself. And that's when we talk about everyone being in simcha and then eventually the simcha of Yerushalayim. Yeah.
And then just to go on the Hagafen again.
Yeah.
It's interesting that like by benching, like both after wedding and also like the week after or whatever, that you make Hagafen at the end.
Yeah. So we went through a lot of sugyas with that also. And the main reason, I don't even remember, that was a long time ago. That was
so what is, so you call it Sheva Berachos, but is it really 7? Because again, it seems like
No. So yeah,
if
you look, the way that the Ram says, if you look at the Ram, says, so the formal name for those brachos is birchas chassanim. Okay, and the way that the Rambam puts it, if you see, it's a little amusing. Oh, and then there's also we tried to get 8 brachos for Yeshua's wedding. Yeah, he made the arrangements, but it didn't come through. I'll tell you what in a second. Hold on a second. Birkas Chassanim. So he says, yeah. Tzarich levarach. This is in Yeshus Yud Gimel. But tzarich levarach birkas Chassanim beveischa chassan kodem hanisun behin sheish brachos. And there are 6. Okay, right? And they start with Shakol Baruch Avoda. The 8th one is we saw all over the place in all the halachas. There is this minhag to have hadassim. Okay, and that according to some, like holding hadassim, like having hadassim, like on the thing, and then making a bracha on smelling the hadassim under the chuppah. And so we saw someone say that would be like, you'd make 8 brachos, because you're going to include that there also. But so Yehoshua got found hadassim, but then the connection was missed, so the dates were wrong, so they didn't get to the wedding in time. So that would have been fun. Yeah.
So what's the idea behind that?
We didn't find out, that we wanted to look into more, but it seems like a cool thing to like revive, because everyone loves how hadassim smell,
Like Pesach approve that?
We didn't ask him. I didn't know Yehoshua was going to go through with like trying to get it. Like I thought it was just we settled. Let's put it this way: through a lot of the learning of law, we were like, oh yeah, we should totally do that. We should totally do that. And like I didn't know he would actually like set it into motion. All right, so that was the crash course on the meanings of the Sheva Berachos. But I'm going to continue because I just want to get this down while it's fresh in my mind on what the deal is with this 4th bracha and yeshiva's minhag. Okay, so if you want to leave, no offense, I'm not going to take offense to it, but let's go delve in. This is going to take about like 10 minutes probably.
What's the issue is not?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so the Abu Dirim warns us. What? Yeah, it's recorded. Yeah, sure. Okay, so the Abu Dirim warns us. I'm going to read this inside of what he calls a kfira ra'ah. Not just any kfira, an evil kfira. Yeah. Okay. So he says, yeah, I'm going to read this one inside because I just want to go on record that the Abu Dirim says this. Okay. I'm quoting from the Eitz Yosef, but it's almost a verbatim quote from the Abu Dirim. He says, so first of all, he says, ashar yatzar Sodom Matzalmo, who created man. But, sorry. You know what? Before we do this, we have to go through the psukim. Okay. So the psukim, there are, the first time that it talks about the creation of man, it says in Bereshit 1:26, let us make man in our tzelem like our likeness. Okay, et cetera, et cetera. Then in 27, it just says Vivra Elokim es Adam bitsalmo. Okay, bitselem Elokim bara oso, zachar Elokim bara osan. So it just uses the word tzelem and drops demus. Okay. Then in chapter 5, pasuk Aleph, it says, "Zeh sefer told us Adam biyom baro Elokim Adam b'demus Elokim baroso." It just says demus and drops tzelem. Okay. So Rav Pesach gave a shiur on Avram ben Rambam on Tzelem Elokim, which is it was in November. Okay, and I was planning on going over the key parts of it inside tonight, but let me just to show you why I can't. Because you go to Avram ben Rambam, and I was going to review it by like, I'll just read the Avram ben Rambam. Not so simple because it starts here and goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay, so the only part of the Avram ben Rambam I remember, which I'm going to reference now, even though I can't fully complete the explanation, is the first step Avram ben Rambam takes is he says that Salminu Kinmusina is clearly referring to the non-physical part of man because it's saying it's in the Tzelem and Demus of God and the angels. Okay. And then the fact that it drops Demus here and then drops Tzelem there means that apparently you can reference the whole idea with either Demus or Tzelem. Okay. That both of them refer to the non-physical part of man. Okay. The part I don't remember is why then does it say Salmenu Kid Musenu here? Okay, Sforno's idea I can mention really quickly, which is that Salmenu. So Sforno is okay. Let me remember the chain. Sforno says the word Elohim refers to etzem nitzchi v'sichli, a rational, eternal essence. Okay, that's not physical. And he says that that's why we call God Elohim because he's rational and eternal and non-physical, and we call angels Elohim because they are rational, eternal in the sense of being created and lasting forever. Okay, not that they're like outside of time, and rational. And then we call judges Elohim because they're supposed to be functioning using that part of themselves. We call man Tzelem Elohim because he is a potential Elohim. Okay, that you start off with the capacity to think. And then you develop that, and then you develop the part of yourself that is eternal and rational, and then you become Elohim. You become, like the angels. Okay. And then Sforno says Demus is referring to free will, which is in actions, where he says that any being who acts with knowledge has free will. So that's how he defines free will. So he says God has free will because he acts with knowledge, but God's free will is only for good. Angels act with free will. but they can't choose bad. And then man acts with free will, and he can choose good or bad. So that's why it says kidemusenu, because it's like the likeness of these beings who can only who act with free will, but it's not demusenu. So that's not what the Avraham Ram says. That's sforno. Okay, so one more term, which is tavnis. So selim is used for non-physical things here. Selim is also used for physical things, like we call idols tzlamin, right? Demus is used for non-physical things here, but can be used for physical things. Tavnis, though, can only be used for physical things. Okay, for example, the physical structure of the Mishkan, or when he's warning against Avodah Zarah, he says, you didn't see any image on the day that Hashem spoke to you on Horeb from the Aish. This is in Devarim 4:15 through 18. He says, lest you make for yourself an image of any semblance, a structure of a male or female. Tavnis kol behema ashar bars. Tavnis kol tzibor ashar kanaf. So tavnis is a physical thing. Okay, so here's the problem now. Okay, so let's look at the kfir ra. So the Abudirim says in the Yehoshua Tefilah, ashar yatzar sadam betzalmo shneimar mavasim bereshis v'yivra elokim es adam betzalmo betzalmo elokim baroso. The inyan tzelem elokim biaru harishonim zal shu koach hachachama v'chachma v'habina v'hadas shnasnu bo koach habechir hachafshis. So just like this forno, right? Just like this forno served it up, is that it's the rational faculty of Chachma, Bina, and Das that God gave us, that gives us Bechira, and through that you can transform your physicality into a spiritual essence. Okay, so that is that. Okay, but I'm reading the wrong part. That was even better than the part I was going to read. Okay, so here's as the Iyun Tefilah. This is. Okay, we go. Ashar yatzar sadam betzalmo shneimar masi adam betzalminu uksiv betzalmo kim asas adam raslomer al tzuras nefesh shnetzelas mikavod abore. All right, v'hosiv od upirsh betzalm demus tavniso shav el ha'adam. You know what, I'm going to summarize it first. It's going to be clear. Let me just tell you what the bad part is. Okay, so the bad way to read it is if you read the second clause as a clarification or explanation of the first clause. So if you say ashar yatzar sadam betzalmo, namely B'Tselem Demus Tavniso, because what that would translate as is who fashioned the man in his form, capital H, that is in the form of likeness of his, capital H, God's physical structure. Okay, that would imply that man's body is created in the physical form of God, and the problem with that is God is not physical. Okay, so it's not that it must mean that, but we want to avoid giving that meaning. Okay, so the Abudirim thinks we're going to be okay if he just explains this to us. Okay, so that's the wrong reading. Okay, so really the tavniso has to be man's physical structure. Okay, so but now the question is, what does the rest of the bracha mean? Okay, so I knew going into this whole thing that yeshiva's minhag is as follows: Asher yatzar as adam betzalmo betzelem demus tavniso. Okay, pause. Between Tselem Demus and Tavnis. So that accomplishes one thing. It accomplishes two things and then creates a problem. It accomplishes the separation of Tavnis from Tselem Demus, right? If you take a breath, then you know it's not the same thing, right? So then you could recognize Tavnis is not talking about the Tavnis of God, and Tselem Demus is something else, okay? And it also has the advantage of pairing Tselem Demus, just like in the pasuk, which is referring to the non-physical component of man. The problem is, how do you read the sentence? Who fashioned the man in his form, in the form of likeness, his physical structure. Like it's like a standalone sentence with
Where's the semicolon?
Yeah. Well, semicolon's not even going to help you there, right? It's just like it's a sentence fragment. You get a green squiggly, right? Yeah. And he established for him an everlasting building. So I could not understand yeshiva's minhag. Okay, so pause that. So then I found in the Abudirim, the way he says to read it is like this. He says, B'Tselem Demus Tavniso, Shav El Ha'adam. This goes back to Adam, okay, meaning Tavnis is Tavnis Shel Adam. Sar Oso B'Tselmo. God formed sorry, I just skipped a line. Rosalomer Demus, Shav El Ha'adam. Rosalomer Demus Tavniso, the Demus of his Tavnis, the likeness of his physical form, Shu Tsuras Gufo, which is the form of his body, Sar Oso B'Tselmo. He formed him in his in his tzelem, shu tzuras nefesh, which is the surah of the nefesh. I'll explain this in a second. All of this is to push away the evil kfira that many people have erred in. That they said that when the pasuk says tzalmo, that God, that or berachah says tzalmo, that man was created in God's form, that's talking about the physical form of man. Okay, so you see though that he says demus tavniso, he's joining the two together. So what does this mean? So I think you need to read this in terms of Rashi. Okay, Rashi on Bereshis says, okay, you're gonna laugh at this.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Okay.
So what does Rashi explain? Demus? Demus is defus. Okay, defus is so defus. We usually use defus as the printed editions of the Rambam. Defus literally means like a template or a mold or a stencil. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I was actually struggling to not use the word mold because I don't want to conjure up like mold. So so I don't exactly know what Rashi learns it as, but he holds that God is referring to the thing that God used to make man's body. Okay, like just like if you are stamping out like with a printing press, you use a template, or if you have like a mold that you're doing, sculpting something in, pouring like wax or whatever in, then you use that. So God used the demus. So what does this mean though practically? So this is what I suggested one possibility would be for us to do, which is to put the pause between tselem and demus tavniso. So you say ashar yatzar asadam etzamo b'tselem demus tavniso. So what that would do is it would say who fashioned man in his form, suited to man's tzelem is the template used to make his bodily form. And he established for him an everlasting building. Now, what does that mean? So what that would mean is as follows. The first clause of the bracha of ashar yatzar asadam etzamo is saying God created man with a non-physical, rational, eternal soul. That's tzelem Elokim. The second clause is saying that God created man's body in a manner that is ideally suitable for a non-physical tzelem. For example, in order to have a Homo sapiens mind, you need to have a certain cranial capacity. You have to have a certain brain function. You seemingly somehow walking upright was necessary evolutionarily. So what it's saying God created man with a tzelem Elokim, a non-physical, rational soul. He also created for him a body that is suited to the tzelem Elokim. So b'tzelem, suited to the tzelem, demus tavniso is the physical structure of his body. Okay, and that is according to the Abudirim, and it's using this little pause trick. Okay, that we do in yeshiva. Okay, so I ran that by Rav Pesach and I said that that's also fine. Okay, but then I saw Sadi Gaon. Sadi Gaon adds one letter and solves all the problems. Asher yatzar esadam etzamo u b'tzelem demus tavniso. Okay, so what does that do? So what it does is it allows you to qualify the first two clauses with the verb yatzar, who fashioned man in his form, in God's form, right? And in brackets, fashioned man's physical structure suited to non-physical tzelem demus. So it allows you to do two things. It allows you to say yatzar relates to tavnis, and it also allows you to keep the idea of tzelem demus both referring to the non-physical part of man. That God created the man b'tzelmo, and he created the physical body that's suited for the tzelem demus. Okay. So that is that works out really well. Okay. So I asked for Pesach. If I said, there's the slide going, like, could I say this when I make bracha? I said, personally, I wouldn't, which is Rav Pesach's way of saying don't. Okay, right? So then I saw Rebbe at the wedding, and I went up to Rebbe and I said, I want to understand the yeshiva's minhag. And then I said, first of all, is the yeshiva's minhag that we pause between tzelem demus and then tavnis? And he said, yes. And I said, I saw that Sadigon put vav, and even before I finished explaining it, he said that has to be the right one. Really? And he said someone told him that the Rav had that minhag, but he said he wasn't sure about that. And I said, can I say it like that? And he said no, right? Because we don't change the minhag, right? And so then I asked him to explain the minhag, So that's when he brought in Rashi's thing of the demus, and he said that what you're doing is asher yatzar esadam etzamo b'tzelem demus tavniso. So who fashioned the man in his form in a tzelem template. So I'm translating demus as template, right? In a tzelem template, he fashioned man's body. Okay, and he established for him an everlasting building. So it is still, it's very similar to the Abu Dirham's. I still think that the Abu Dirham's way flows smoother. And the reason why this is not changing the minhag is you're not actually changing the nusach of the bracha, right? And so you're just clarifying it by the way you intone it, that God was yatzar two things. He was yatzar Adam Samo, and he was yatzar his tavnis B'Tselem Demos. So that's the justification for the yeshiva's minhag, and also going on record that in case anyone thinks that we just like change minhagim willy-nilly, we don't. Okay, even if there's a kfir involved, possibility involved, yeah. Yeah. So that's the
I saw
lowdown.
like a thing that said the explanation of that Rabbi DB, it was like peeking out from the page a little farther down.
Down here? What?
Where was it?
This thing here?
Oh, that.
Yeah, that was just yeah. I just want to put the date for my own notes so that I can say.
So just because it's B'Tselem the moose talking, so.
Yeah, that's the issue. Yeah, but Rapesa did say that if you said B'Tselem Demus Tamiso, that would also be good. But the difference is, see, the real difference is, do you hold that Demus is Rashi's idea, which is referring to man's physical body and how it was made? Or do you hold by like Avram ben Aramim's idea or Sforno, where Tselem Demus is referring to the non-physical part? So our minhag reflects the idea that Tselem Demus is referring to the non-physical part, and that's the advantage of our minhag. Yeah. Whew, okay, so that's the crash course. Yeah. And again, this is the type of thing where like it enhances the wedding so much if you review these ideas before you go to the wedding. There's so much downtime. So the way this started was my practice where every wedding I would go to is, who you sit next to during the chuppah is like a key thing. So I'd always choose someone to sit next to who I could go over and work on these ideas with, and then discuss it. And it would be a review for me and like a further development. And then you get to experience the wedding with through the lenses of the ideas.
Can you just summarize the 6 brachas like that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. So the Shakol Bar Aleph Vodo is on the gathering of the people who are there for the Gemilus Chesed for the chosson and kala, and to remind everyone that the purpose of the world of the earth is Pru Revu, to produce Tselem Elokims that can recognize the Kavod Hashem. Okay. The next bracha of Yotzar Ha'adam is talking about the creation of man. And the only reason we say that is because we want to get to the 4th bracha, which is the creation of Adam and Chava, which is the first couple and the paradigmatic couple, which was 2 Tselem Elokims that are Ezer connected to each other, right? And that's the model for all generations. That's the Binyan Ade Ad. Okay. With that, we segue into the talking about this couple, but before we talk about this present simcha, those were like thematic brachos about marriage. This is now about the present simcha. So before we talk about the simcha, we say sos tasis v'tagal ha'akara, and we remember Yerushalayim. Okay, then we talk about this couple, and this 6th bracha is a bakasha for success and happiness for this couple. But it should be happiness that is based on principles of Tselem Elokim, okay, and living having a relationship built on Tselem Elokim, Rambam's highest level of friendship in Pirkei Avos 1:6, and then the final bracha is on the simcha of the entire wedding and a yearning and it's a hodah for that, and also yearning and asking God for the simcha of the complete Am Yisrael and the rebuilding of Yerushalayim, when we'll have like Od Yisham Bar Yehuda, etc. All this joy. Yeah.
Why is the 5th bracha there, not like at the end or the start? Like, why is it in the middle?
So that's the thing I'm trying to say. It's not in the middle. It's before the brachos about this marriage, because imlo al es Yerushalayim Moroshim Kosi is that you can't let your simcha take precedence over Yerushalayim. You have to make Yerushalayim before your greatest simcha.
This might be outside the scope of what you did. Why do we do like the cup and all that at the end?
So I did a bunch of other detective work to see if anyone has the minhag to break the glass at bracha number 5, and if we're going to change things, that would be a nice place to break it. But probably the reason why we do is because that's right before they go into into yichud.
Well, also insofar as to my knowledge, the source for breaking the glass was like in the midst of the wedding. Like there's I think an Amora was making for his son, and he noticed people were getting too happy, so he took his really expensive glass. And
that would be epic.
and then,
yeah.
And then everyone was like, quieted down and like,
Yeah.
got all somber for
Ah.
and then it happened again, and it's
Ah.
left another.
Cool. I never knew that was the
Yeah,
origin.
yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I forget where the Gemara is,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, that's like a source
Yeah.
that I've been told.
Yeah.
I was literally just doing
That's
what
good.
you said, but
Oh.
today.
Sorry, one last thing just to plug thing. I mentioned this to you and Yehoshua. Rabbi Maruf, who again is one of the best writers in yeshiva, wrote this pamphlet, 26-page pamphlet called Shoshanas Yaakov, a guide to the Jewish wedding and laws of family purity in light of the fundamentals of Jewish thought. It's a walkthrough in simple English of all the halachos with all the philosophical concepts explained. Okay, so it is very good. Like if you're, it's good for you to read also, but like, you never know if the girl you're marrying has like resistance to the laws of like Nida or whatever, this would be a good thing to go over because it's what the philosophical values are underlying those things. And because it's Rabbi Maruf, it is halakhically accurate and beautiful in terms of like its explanation. And I wanted to read it before Yehoshua and Brooke's wedding, but then I realized like I don't want it to taint my my own learning of the sugya with him. So I haven't gone back and read it yet, but I read it a long time ago, but yeah. So just, that's the ending commercial there. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I'm glad we did this.
Wonderful.
Whew.